I'm Louise Fletcher and I help artists find their own unique creative voice. Last week I shared with you one of my composition tricks, one of my exercises. This week I'm going to continue on with my videos about composition. I made one last week showing my collage practice. I'm still away from my studio, so I'm going to be back in the new space working on another small collage using another packet of materials sent to me by someone else. I think I learned some lessons last time, so let's go find out if that's the case and if it gets easier this time. So if you didn't see my last video, what I have is my sketchbook, which is an altered book that I'm working in with these collages. And I've just done a few so far, just using, some of them are using found papers, and then the last few I'm using papers that were sent to me by members of my art tribe. And I do this as an exercise in composition. All I have is my sketchbook, my scissors, a glue stick, and some collage papers. This one is from Jane in Connecticut, and I don't know what's in here. So this was a really amazing, these are amazing gifts from members of my art tribe who I wrote to and said, I'm looking for some collage papers. Do you have any you want to get rid of? And this is what I received. So I just go through the pile and I'm just going to grab some things that appeal to me. I may not use them. Isn't it cool to see what other people make though? So once I have the papers chosen, I start to arrange things, and I'd picked these blue papers because the colour is repeating, and so it immediately gives me the ability to repeat an element, which is colour. In this composition, you'll see that I also work on repeating shape, a particular shape, but we'll get to that. So I was using again only papers that were in the envelope, so I found this orange piece that I really liked, and a lot of what I put down here will end up covered up, because seems to be the way I have to work. Even in my collages, I seem to need to layer to find my way. Perhaps I will get better, and perhaps I will see this intuitively, instantly, but at the moment I do not. So what I did there was doing with those blue pieces of paper was trying to find balance to the blue on the right-hand side. These dots were a sheet of painted dots that had been sent. They're kind of raised up, and I started cutting some of the dots out, and they actually will play a role in the final composition. What I wanted was to repeat that element of dots without just cutting out the same thing and putting it on the other side. So now, because those are randomly placed, they echo the dots without repeating them. Here I felt like I needed something dark at the top, but I hadn't yet figured out my answer. I placed those blue pieces because I decided I liked the repetition of blue. I'm starting to put my dots down. I think these get moved, but I knew they were the answer to echoing the dots on the other side. And then I realized the piece of paper I had that I'd cut the dots out of would nicely echo the black on the right-hand side at the bottom and the black in those circles, but in a different way. I added that black stripe on the side. I brought some more orange in. So now I'm repeating the colours again. I'm repeating black and orange. I wanted to repeat these circles. I think this ends up covered up, but at the time I was trying to bring the circles back in. And I often remove paper, as you saw me do here. I'm tearing off paper. I don't really like straight edges in my own work. Now I had decided, you know what, it's getting too complicated. I need to simplify, just like last week. I always have to simplify, my tendency to make things busy. And so because I'd chosen a colour that repeats in the papers I had, I was able to bring that colour in on this side, just in a different paper. So I've covered up some of what I put down. I liked just bringing in some brown as a contrast, but I felt that was too much of a big lump of brown. So I began to try and break it up. I'm bringing the orange back in that got covered up. And here again, I've cut that circle out of the paper. Now I'm using that. So we're repeating a circle, and circles are becoming the motif of this piece. We're repeating the circle, but we're doing it in a different way. Now I bring all my little dots back because I put them to the side. And so they are echoing the dots along the bottom, but they're different. So I suppose my motto is repeat but differently. Never do exactly the same thing in two places, but do things that bring some kind of consistency. So because I have the brown paper on the bottom, I put it here, but I cut a circle out again, so it's something different. I started playing with these black bits of paper, and I liked the weight they brought to it. That's actually the dots turned upside down because I didn't have any black paper in the envelope. And so then I decided, I'm not getting the right shape and size on the left-hand side. And I had the idea to make these little stripes, and I really like what that does because it's bringing black in again in a different way. So each time we see black, it's not the same, but it is repeating. Gluing those down was fun. They were not easy to stick down. I felt that black was too much, so I broke it up with this slightly transparent. Again, circles though. Do you see how I'm repeating circles? So that is what is making this feel consistent. It's the repetition of one shape. You don't have to repeat one shape, but that's what I've done. At this point, I felt like the bottom was too heavy, and I also felt like I wanted some light space in the middle, so I tore up some of the paper just to let the book come through again. And then I had the idea that pulled it together, which was to make some more circles, but this time a completely different size. So see how these big white circles are mirroring the small white dots on the other side? I'm adding a few more dots. I stick these down and I'm done. Oh, I just added a couple of little dots. I felt they needed to keep running up the page. That's it. Now I'm done. And while I don't love pure white like that, I think that's maybe a little bit too much pure white. I was working with what I had in the packet, and I like the fact that we now have a circle motif, but each time you see the circles, they're different. And then we have stripes to contrast with that, and a few areas of solid colour so that it's not all dots. So do you see how by repeating colours or repeating shapes or really any element in your painting, you can create this kind of consistent world that makes sense to us. And then within that, you create contrast by, although you're repeating, you're never repeating in the same way. And I think these two principles really are enough to make great compositions every time. You don't need to worry about a lot of complicated rules or fixed idea of what a composition should be if you keep these two things in mind. Hope that's helpful, and I'll see you next time.